Everything that anyone ever builds in a spreadsheet, and you can probably tell me if you agree or disagree, can be bucketed into two categories. On the data analytical side, running raw data, I see more opportunity for AI tools to do it faster, more insightful. I just believe that as humans, and when you think about human nature, humans are going to want to ultimately come up, if there's a major decision at stake, they're going to want to get an answer from a human. I just ran an AI bot, and here it is.
Ian Schnoor is the founder of the Financial Modelling Institute, and I got the pleasure of meeting him for the first time at the Global Excel Summit 2024. I actually then, very soon afterwards, flew to Toronto and spent even more time with him in his home city. At the summit, we talked about the potential impact of AI on the financial modelling industry. We talked about things like Monte Carlo, the importance of the process you go on in a modelling project, not just the outputs that you reach, and a whole host of other things. And the more I talk to Ian, the more I get that sense that we are very, very closely aligned in the way that we think about financial modelling in general. So here is my full interview with Ian at the Global Excel Summit 2024. I hope you enjoy it. Ian Schnoor, founder of the FMI. It's a pleasure to see you. This is, we spent a little bit of time together over the last 24 hours, which has been amazing after 2-3 years of Zoom calls and whatever else?
Something like that, yes. And now I feel like I'm commentating on a football match with you here.
It's good. It adds a bit of something, doesn't it?
Tremendous. It's tremendous. Yeah, it's great to meet finally in person.
Yeah, it's been really, really nice. And you've flown over from Toronto, basically, for this event.
Yes.
How long are you here for?
The week. I'll leave Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are almost at the end of day one. Mm-hmm. The topic of the whole summit has been AI. And I know you've got very strong views on this. I know, to be honest, everybody that you kind of hear talking has got very strong views. Where's your head at with AI and the future of probably financial modeling in particular, rather than broader Excel?
Yes. So do we have a couple hours? Gosh, I mean, it's funny. We're talking about AI, and we're talking about the fact that computers will replace us. And where are we? We're all here together as people in a conference and not meeting on Zoom, because there is something about being as people together and fulfilling that desire. And, kind of using that analogy by the same token, I'll just come right out and say it. I don't think AI is going to change. As we've heard in talks today, I believe that AI is going to transform the way we work. I don't think it's going to replace data analysts. I think it may require more data analysts, to be perfectly honest, because there is more and more data out there. Yeah. And there are more specialized skills that people need to harness the power of AI. And so I actually think it's a tremendous opportunity for young professionals these days to really get skilled up in a lot of these areas. But my message would be, fear not, worry not. There will probably be more jobs as a result of this than less.
It's interesting, we both talk financial modeling to lots of people.
Right.
I feel like we've just started having the lambda conversation, and I think both of us have a very strong belief that you should still try and keep things simple wherever possible. The conversations need to happen. Now you've got AI on top. I really feel for the average modeler or somebody at the start of their career at the moment.
I do too. I feel for them, but keep in mind at the end of the day, on the modeling side, listen, I tell this to people all the time. There are really only two reasons people ever use spreadsheets. Really, I know that sounds very simplistic, but in all the 25 years of work that I've ever done, everything that anyone ever builds in a spreadsheet, and you can probably tell me if you agree or disagree, can be bucketed into two categories. Yeah. Some sort of a data tool or a big data tool or some sort of a data dump, and you've pulled some data. Let's imagine we downloaded a list of every football player in the Premier League and all their stats, and we want to run some data on history and how they're performing. So that's just running and analyzing, coming up with graphs and charts on raw data and analyzing. That's kind of what today's conference is. Today we're focusing on. And the second major bucket of things that people do with spreadsheets is forecast. Yeah. They build models. Yeah. Honestly, almost everything that people do is building some sort of a tool to look at data or to build some sort of forecast. Yes, people build templates, but those templates are to help, make the same sorts of decisions. Yeah. On the data analytical side, running raw data, I see more opportunity for AI tools to do it faster,
Yes.
more insightful. And I see less opportunity on the modeling side. But at the end of the day, I just believe that as humans, and when you think about human nature, humans are going to want to ultimately come up, if there's a major decision at stake, they're going to want to get an answer from a human. If I'm the managing director and you're my analyst, I don't know any senior managing directors yet that would be comfortable asking for some analytics, and Giles shows up and says, I just ran an AI bot and here it is. I don't know any managing director that would say, okay, that's great. They're going to say, Giles, what do you think? What did you do? How did you get there? What decisions did you make? What inputs did you use? How did you modify the assumption? Or what if you change this and what if you change that? Are we still comfortable? Let's have a conversation about it. And if you can, then we can get there. But you can use your AI tools, but you're still going to have tremendous insight into everything you've done, and that will only happen if you've done some of the work. If you just sit back and say, I don't know anyone that will be comfortable making a major decision.
I totally agree. And it reminds me of Layla's example this morning, actually, of the minibar, where
Yes.
her family was at the hotel and she had a huge bill from one of the rooms, and basically things have been taken out of the minibar and put
Right.
back in every day to keep other things cold.
Right.
And the person, when they got the bill, obviously hadn't even really thought about it or looked at it.
No.
And it's that danger of like, the AI will just do the work for me.
Yeah, it's a
slightly
perfect example. People will make colossal. People seem to like AI, and right now the complaint over human issues is that there's human error. Well, to your example, the people who stop relying on humans and rely entirely on AI will discover that there is equal AI error. I think we have to work together. You're right. The AI in the hotel charged her parents for taking everything out of the fridge so that they could put their own stuff in it, and then they probably charged them double when they put it back in. Who knows? But the desk clerk didn't catch that. And you're right. And so those exact mistakes will happen if you're my boss and I deliver something that I can't speak to. And we'll realize after a major decision was made, AI picked up on some strange anomaly, or it missed something, or it made something up. I will also add that in the modeling space, in the forecasting space, and I will quote Brian Egger here, the head of, do you know Brian? You've met.
Yeah.
Yes, Brian's the head of financial modeling at Bloomberg, and you can hashtag him right at this point.
Yes,
here, hi
we will.
Brian. But a comment that he made that I loved, I still stand very much by what we talked about, a person has to, for me, modeling is about the process. It's not about getting the answer, it's about how did you get there, so you can get smart about the opportunity, the company, and you can become the smartest person in the room to help guide and steer a decision. If all you did is run an AI program, you're not smart. You're just a data processor at that point. He took it a step further and said, as someone who's getting smart, you need to be able to look at huge volumes of data and intelligently use your brain to be a contrarian and go against the tide. And his comment was that what AI is very good at doing is researching what the tide looks like and saying, well, this is the tide, this is what consensus says.
Yeah.
Most analysts are suggesting X, so I guess that's the path we're going. It's hard to imagine how an AI bot can look at a massive trend that everyone's following and say, I don't think so, guys. I think actually we're going to go the other way.
Yeah.
That would take, a human has to program the computer, but a human can say, no, for a variety of reasons, I actually think we're going to take a left turn up here, and that's my position, and I'm going to stand behind it. You may or may be right, you might be wrong.
Yep.
But that's why you're paying you to come up with a view. And you'll say, and if I'm wrong and it looks like this instead, here's what the outcome will look like. So all that combined suggests to me that we need to work in harmony with our new tools.
Yeah.
And be able to embrace them so we can do more and faster, but we still have to get really smart and intelligent about our opportunities.
Yeah, it's so true. Actually, Brian wrote a really good article recently, which you probably saw as well, where he talked about that gut feel.
Yeah, I forwarded it, yes, on my LinkedIn, yeah.
The first thing he was the first person that I'd heard say for a very long time, like, actually sometimes you might not even need a model. It goes back to your thing, like what's the human doing? There's a gut instinct there's something that you bring to the table where it's more than just patterns and trends.
Well,
And I thought that was fantastic.
I loved it because, again, I've always, one of my favorite lines that, I offer to rent to people, and I don't get a lot of royalties on it, but one of the things, one of my big complaints with a lot of, I've audited and reviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people's models, and one of my big number one complaints is that they're often too detailed. And my complaint with a model that's too detailed is when a model is extraordinarily detailed, it creates an illusion of accuracy.
Yes.
And one of my favorite things to do when I'm auditing a model is to ask the person, why did you choose to build up the cost of goods sold line in 10,000 rows in your spreadsheet? And in 90% of cases or higher, they are taken aback, like I smacked them, and they say, oh, they were not expecting that question. They say, well, I did that because that's how the data came. The data looked like that. We dumped it out of our SAP system, and all these ledger rows were here on every teeny detailed cost, so we forecasted that way, or whatever. That could be applied to anything, the revenues, the costs, the taxes, whatever it is. And that's exactly how it transacted historically.
Yep.
So we forecasted that way. But that doesn't put any thought into whether it's reasonable or appropriate. That doesn't put any thought into whether it makes sense. But the problem is it creates, there's more room for technical error, but it also creates an illusion of accuracy that's not, you're just more, you might be more precisely wrong, but it doesn't build in. And Brian's comment, which you brought up, is that you need to build a forecast. You have to think through all the major issues, but you need to have enough wiggle room to have a bit of a gut check as well. Yeah. Does that make sense? And it's really hard to do that if you're forecasting by transactional item, if you're forecasting thousands and thousands of rows. So you have to be able to quantitatively, analytically, be strong tools, but still use your head, be intelligent enough to push back and say, I don't think that makes a lot of sense for the following 3 reasons.
I used to see that, and I was probably guilty of it myself earlier in my career with Monte Carlo analysis. You'd get, my God, like really good tools like At Risk. Yes. I used to use that in my first job all the time, and you'd get these amazing reports. Sure. Here's the cost value at 90% confidence, 50%, but if your inputs are wrong, if the distribution curves aren't accurate, the outputs are meaningless. It doesn't matter how detailed they are.
Right. I may get some flack for saying this. I've never been the biggest fan myself of using statistical techniques like Monte Carlo simulations in models. I feel that it tries, and I could, people will have strong views opposing this, but I feel like it tries to quantify the notion of gut feel and judgment. What I want to do, and people who learn models, and certainly in FMI's Advanced Financial Model or AFM accreditation, we talk about the fact that when you're building a forecast for any company, the vast majority of there will be dozens, if not many dozens of inputs and assumptions. Most of them, we have a pretty good ability to forecast and predict with pretty good accuracy. If a company has a piece of long-term debt and it's a fixed rate of interest at 7% for the next 5 years, well, you can accurately assume what that interest rate will be. If the tax rate is 30%, chances are it's going to be pretty close to that over the next 5 years, unless there's a radical government change, and there probably won't be. Yeah. There's a handful of assumptions that are hard to forecast and that are hard to control and that could move around on you. Those are the ones that the analyst has to identify and then build in some variance, tolerance for upside cases, downside cases, and say, I don't know exactly what the price of copper or nickel or whatever it is, or crude oil is going to be based on my best judgment on history and looking into the future. I think this is one possibility. This might be a high end, this is a low end, and let's play with that. I feel like running Monte Carlo often just shows you a full shotgun approach of every single thing, and I'm not even sure how I like people to sit down and try and take ownership of a case.
At least start, if you're not doing it already, just get a best, most likely, and a worst, and talk about it before you throw Monte Carlo over the top of something.
I think so. And listen, and then you want to throw it on top, great. But listen, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I still really believe at the end of the day that someone has to be able to intelligently take ownership for every single number, every single calculation, every single assumption. Yeah. And see, I get it. I own how we got there. Now, collectively, using that information, are we comfortable making this decision? And that's it. And that's all you can do is make the best decision possible based on the best information you have today. You're not going to be right, but the other thing the model will do is help you change course very quickly if you are, or when things change unexpectedly.
Yeah.
To say, actually, something's changing. How do we adapt? The model has given us ability to think about how we might need to adapt. Oh, we're going to have to lay off 10% when this happened, or this is how we're going to survive, etc. But you've thought about these issues, which is all we can try and do.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
we're very aligned.
we
on
are
lots of
very
things.
aligned, yes.
You used the word Luddite earlier before we started recording, which I think is unfair. I just think there is
Yes.
something in the way things have been done that works.
I agree. I jokingly sometimes refer to myself as a Luddite modeler. I mean, I've, as I said, been involved in modeling for a long time, and I embrace all the technology. But when I jokingly talk about that, I mean that I still want to understand every element, and when someone else is building a model, I want them to feel empowered and confident that my goal is when anyone builds a model or gets accredited and has the confidence that they could sit down with the CEO, the CFO, any investor, the banker, and have a very intelligent conversation about the business confidently and help to arrive at an informed decision.
Yeah.
And an over-reliance on technological tools, whether it's something like Monte Carlo or an AI-based tool, I think risks diminishing that element to some extent. So it's a balancing act.
I see. We'll have to have another chat in 2 years and see whether we're still saying the same thing or whether it's all changed by then.
Yeah. You know what? I've gone through, in my career now, I've gone through a few waves of this. So I feel like the old guy that went through, Y2K. Nobody even knows what Y2K means, but I went through some meaningful periods where people said Excel's dead. Yeah. No one's going to be using Excel. There have been a couple of waves over the past 20 years when people predicted the demise of analysts. Excel's more powerful. Other tools are around. FactSet is in. Other tools are in, and it's going to diminish the need. And in every single instance, it has led to a need for more horsepower on the people side, not less. So doesn't worry me. Then I'm excited about what the future holds. But we will talk again in a couple of years, and we will speak in
a few weeks.
A couple of weeks.
So hopefully we'll meet up in Toronto. Looking forward to the trip, and really appreciate you stopping and chatting for so long. It's been a fascinating day. We've got a lot to look forward to tomorrow as well. Thanks very much, Ian.
It has been a
pleasure.
thrill. Great to meet you in person, and we will do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.